every possession.
By the way, the Chiefs' all-time leading rusher.
Pause it right here. Now, we're about 8 minutes or so into the second half of Super Bowl 58 at this point. And I mean, up to this point, it was ugly for Kansas City. You had the frequent miscommunications. You had the turnovers. You had, this. And even though the scoreboard didn't necessarily say it, the Chiefs had ultimately been shut down offensively for the majority of this game. That is, at least until this play. Now I know, when you actually look at it, it might just seem like a basic read option to some of you watching this video, but you guys, between everything that we witnessed from this point on in this game, there is no exaggeration when I say that this play call, it probably won Kansas City this Super Bowl. But before we get into that, today's video is brought to you by our friends at Good Shop. Good Shop is an extremely flexible meat and seafood subscription service that gives you the easiest access possible to the highest quality of products. And guys, with how shopping is nowadays, I can barely stand more than 2 seconds in a grocery store. But with Good Shop, I just choose my favorites from their 60 plus options of high quality cuts, receiving my food by package in the mail, and just like that, I whipped up some of their chicken breast and bacon cuts, hell, even wrapped them together, threw some eggs on the side, and I couldn't have been more ready for the big game. But what's even better about Good Shop is that all of their products are sourced directly from the United States, and they even have a 100% money back guarantee, meaning they're confident that you'll love it or you get your money back. And if you guys go to goodshop.com/YouTube and use code FBDigest120 or click the link in the description down below, you'll get $120 off across your first 4 Good Shop boxes. So guys, again, that is goodshop.com/YouTube, promo code FBDigest120 for $120 off through the best at Good Shop. Time of possession. Whether you were looking at this game from either San Francisco or Kansas City's perspective, keeping the football out of the opposing team's hands was ultimately going to be the name of the game. You heard that before the game. You saw one of the most questionable coin toss decisions of all time, along with giving this guy the last chance to score in a sudden death situation, really testify to that more than anything else could. But at the same time, the rather disappointing first half that we saw from Kansas City, that is also another example of this. But it's not even as if Mahomes and this offense had been getting outplayed for the most part, as some of the numbers would indicate. And of course, you gotta give credit to Spags and the defense at that point.
How about that D, baby?
But honestly, it's more so the fact that their initial game plan, it really couldn't have gone worse. Let's start with the pass game. Their short game reliance we'd become accustomed to was not producing like it had over the last few weeks, along with the pocket pressure being pretty much overwhelming on Mahomes for the majority of this game. Then there was what they were doing on the ground, which really was supposed to be Kansas City's golden ticket against a defense that had been well below average in this regard. But in terms of Pacheco's production, it looked less effective than it had all season. And with an offense that had just 3 first downs heading into the 2-minute warning, with one of them being a Hail Mary, may I remind you, ball control was everything to start this game. And with Kansas City's, something needed to change because they weren't the ones controlling it. And that change, it starts right here. Now, it's honestly funny because in terms of efficiency, Mahomes was by a mile the most effective ground game presence out of anyone in Super Bowl 58, as the numbers would tell you. And I mean, sure, we've all known that Mahomes can be as big of a threat on the ground as we saw in this game and really throughout the course of these entire playoffs. But honestly, after this play, I don't think most people realize that we saw a version of Andy Reid in the Kansas City Chiefs that we haven't seen all season long. Because do you want to know how many times we actually saw run design plays for Patrick Mahomes in the entire regular season? The answer? 3 times. 3 times. Yet down the stretch of the Super Bowl, you're seeing triple options, zone read options, pretty much anything you can think of to throw San Francisco's defense off in one of the most unexpected ways possible. And I mean, we've definitely seen in the past why Kansas City tends to lean away from overusing their quarterback's feet, but at the same time, you cannot make up the difference it made in every aspect of this offense. For example, through the first 3 quarters or so of this game, when you saw San Francisco's front line constantly locking down edges and almost immediately biting on running back concepts every time, which was easily the biggest reason as to why Pacheco wasn't as effective in the beginning, as soon as Mahomes became a run threat and you saw them continue to do this, they eventually had to stop bull rushing the edges in order to read Mahomes, thus why you saw the ground presence be much more successful down the stretch of this game, whether it be Mahomes or Pacheco. Then even when you look to the air attack, it clearly contributed to much less pocket pressure in dropback situations for Mahomes, because by the grace of God for Kansas City, it finally forced the San Francisco defense 45 minutes into the game to actually send a blitz at the pocket. And well, in terms of Mahomes' ability to both read and operate against the blitz, I mean, I'd probably say it's a strong suit of his. Like, it's one thing to see when you compare the first to second half numbers, how much of an effect this simple playbook adjustment had on this team's overall operation, but it's another when you realize that somehow isn't even the biggest change that we saw. Because that other change that nobody expected, there's only 2 words you need to describe it. And those 2 words are target share. Because guys, in an offense that was predicated on the use of their top 2 targets in Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce to find success through the air attack, you somehow saw the exact opposite of that game plan in the biggest game of the year. Take, for example, the use of guys like MVS and Justin Watson, wideouts whose use had been lowered this season due to this offense's inability to consistently extend the field, who, as we saw, were making crucial plays time and time again, whether it was through the deep ball or even being used in unexpected concepts. Then, of course, there is the heart and soul in Rice and Kelce, who, while the first to second half use of their Hall of Fame tight end was obviously heavily discussed, the increase in use that you saw actually heavily relied on them taking advantage of zone flaws and coverage gaps created by those other guys. But I mean, honestly, if some of these facts, like Mecole Hardman of all people being the one to walk it off, or even some aspects on the other side of the ball, such as holding guys like Brock Purdy and Christian McCaffrey to some of their least effective games of the entire season, doesn't emphasize to you how generational what we're seeing from any of these guys is. I mean, really, I don't know what will. But also, that is where I want to hear what you guys have to think of this. So please let me know in the comments, what was the most surprising thing you noticed out of everything we saw from Kansas City in this game, whether it was on the offensive or the defensive side of the ball? And also, what do you think either of these teams are going to do in this upcoming offseason? But once again, I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate y'all more than anything, and I will see you guys in the next video.